Now, Proctor also said that after the murders, they were very concerned, very scared for Alec and Buster's safety. They thought somebody might come after them. But she testified that Alec didn't seem concerned for his safety at all. As a matter of fact, she said his priority didn't even seem to be finding the killers.
Okay.
Did you kill Maggie?
No. Did I kill my wife?
Yes, sir.
No, David.
Do you know who did?
No, I do not know who did.
Did you kill Paul?
No, I did not kill Paul.
Do you know who did?
No, sir, I do not know who did. Do you think I killed Maggie?
I have to go where the evidence and the facts
I
take me.
understand that. And you think I killed Paul?
I have to go where the evidence and the facts take me, and I don't have anything that points to anybody else at this time.
So does that mean that I am a suspect?
You were still in, like I told Corey earlier, you were still in this.
Nobody deceives like an addict.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Murdaugh's biggest mistake, what was it? When Alex Murdaugh is asked point blank, did you kill your wife, is his response believable? Is his tight, immobile body language completely frozen? Is that the stuff of honesty? Is that the stuff of honesty answers? When you see what a sniveling crybaby he is, or what a sniveling crybaby can be, this version of him, this rigid, arms folded, cross-legged, locked position in terms of his body language, which he maintains for about a minute, is definitely telling. Nobody deceives like an addict, and a $7,000 per day drug addiction, that's if you divide $50,000 by 7, you average to about $7,000 per day. That is deception like you've never seen before. Not second nature, now it's first nature. Not deception that is second nature, deception that is first nature. It becomes who you are. It is who you are. And so how does this explain Murdaugh's biggest mistake? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, I'm going to be putting up a video dealing with the DNA under the fingernails. That is likely to be very controversial, very shocking, but try to read between the lines. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. Now, it takes psychopathy to kill in the gratuitous fashion we see in front of the kennels at Moselle. I think you would agree that the Murdaugh murders are particularly gratuitous. But this is really just the same brand of psychopathy we see in the Amanda Knox case in Moscow, Idaho, and in the triple axe murders of Henry von Murdaugh. I don't like using the term psychopath, but it doesn't really, well, because it really doesn't tell us anything about the criminal. But these crimes are particularly psychopathic, particularly heinous, particularly sadistic, particularly cruel, and particularly bloody. Take note, although the crime is psychopathic and the work of a psychopath, none of the killers in these crimes are psychopaths. So how can you have psychopathy woven through all of these crimes, through and through, yet the perpetrator isn't a psychopath? How do we explain it? Drugs. Drugs, in fact, any addiction, including addiction to social media or an addiction to your phone, can and does turn ordinary people into heartless devils. But the thing I want to talk about here is what Maggie's sister, Marion Proctor, said.
I asked him, I said, Alec, do you have any idea who's done this? I said, we have got to find out who could do this. And he said that he did not know who it was, but he felt like whoever did it had thought about it for a really long time. We were afraid. We didn't know what was going on. My family was scared. I was scared for Alec and Buster. I felt like they needed protection. I think everybody was afraid. And Alec didn't seem to be afraid. I did at one point ask him if Maggie had suffered, and he assured me that she did not. Now, I don't know that I think that's true.
Nobody deceives like an addict.
Drugs, in fact, any addiction, including addiction to social media or an addiction to your phone, can and does turn ordinary people into devils. As I say, the thing I want to talk about here is what Maggie's sister Marion Proctor said, that after the double homicides, everyone was afraid. She was afraid. And they were also afraid for Alex and Buster, almost like on their behalf. The trouble was, Alex himself wasn't afraid. If someone wanted revenge or payback, this is within the schema of this case, or the double murders were a threat or a warning to Alex and Buster. The odd thing is, although Alex armed himself at the scene, ostensibly he'd seen what had happened and he felt right then and there at the scene he needed protection. He seemed to forget to be afraid subsequently. I mean, didn't he continue living at Moselle? Who would? In the scenario he gives, it was blind luck that he wasn't there in the moment that the killer struck. And so he got a narrow escape. That his random impulsive decision to visit his sleeping mother at a time he never really did, that maneuver ended up saving his life. But if the killers were so determined, and if they just executed two people in the way that they did, why would they allow Alex and Buster to live? So what it is a kind of mirror to the psychopathy aspect, but in a more subtle sense. In the same way you see a lot of emotion at the crime scene, for example in the vehicle, or in the case of Henry von Murdaugh, none at all, what you're really seeing is inappropriate emotion before, during, and after. And I think what is quite interesting with Alex Murdaugh is he seems to over-dramatize in a way that stings you. You feel almost uncomfortable because there's so much emotion. And you don't really think, you don't really know what to do. Isn't that what the intention of that drama is? Is it so overpowering that you are kind of taken aback, that you're on the back foot? Addicts can be great deceivers in their words, but it's very difficult for them to step outside of themselves and see what appropriate behavior is, and to keep that appropriate behavior going. I mean, they have that in common with ordinary criminals, but it is even harder when you've got the drug addiction to see outside of that cloud, to see outside of those woods, to see what appropriate behavior is, not in a single moment, but in an integrated, coherent way. And that is the way one catches them out. This is because their very existence and also their psychology and also their identity has been completely fragmented by the addiction. We see the same intertextuality in the sense of you've been a victim of crime, but somehow everyone else is aware of it, everyone else is afraid, but you're not. Everyone else is afraid, but not you. So intertextually, think about the JonBenet Ramsey case. JonBenet is killed in her own home, ostensibly by a foreign faction. And then the Ramsey son, Burke, is simply allowed to continue to go to school as normal. The same school in Boulder. And when law enforcement offered to provide additional security to chaperone Burke, the Ramseys refused. They didn't want or need additional security for their other child. If it was you, what would you have done? Technically, the Ramsey case is a botched kidnapping, and the killer is still out there, and he didn't get what he wanted. So why weren't the Ramseys still afraid? In the Madeleine McCann case, their child is abducted from a hotel, yet the McCanns continue to stay in the same hotel with their other children for, I think, another 2 months. They certainly used the hotel's creche facilities for many additional months. And so, in other words, they then left their children at that same hotel while they traveled elsewhere, including right outside of Praia de Luz, right outside of Portugal even, despite an abductor on the loose. After the murder of Meredith Kercher, all of Meredith's British friends were recalled back to Britain, and there was a sense of terror even amongst the Italian students in Perugia, right? there was a sense of terror overshadowing the campus in Perugia. But Amanda Knox wanted to stay. Amanda Knox wanted to continue going to class. Amanda Knox said that she wanted to stay because she wanted to help with the investigation. In the Idaho case, Brian Koberger also remained in the area for several more weeks after November 13th. When everyone else had bugged out, he was still there more than a month later. People had left Moscow. People had also left Pullman. People had abandoned their medical appointments, but Koberger continued to attend his. Koberger only left Pullman around December 13th. Why wasn't he afraid? So Murdaugh's biggest mistake is that he doesn't seem to believe in his own version of events. If he did, he would have been afraid. If he did, he would have seen that kind of fear and the action taken in response to that fear. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to take it further than that. I'm going to do a follow-up video. Some people are going to think it's controversial, but you do need to read between the lines of the DNA under the fingernails. How is that intertextual to another case? Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.